The Meeples and Miniatures Podcast, episode 187. All about Too Fat Lardies and Reisswitz Press, including news of the new Dawns and Departures supplement for Sharp Practice 2. With hosts Neil Shuck, Mike Whitaker and Dave Luff, and guest Richard Clarke. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures Podcast. I'm Neil Shuck, and once again I am joined by the Phantom Cake Statue himself, Mr. Michael Whitaker.
Munch, munch, munch.
Good evening, sir. And what flavour have we for the listener this evening?
I'll keep that secret.
Oh.
I mean, you only get upset.
So, I suppose the question is, at this time of year, are you feeding the Christmas cake?
I believe the Christmas cake is being produced this very week.
Ooh.
Not to mention a very large batch of Christmas puddings, because our recipe appears to only work in industrial quantities.
Excellent.
We're not quite at the point where if any listener wants a Christmas pudding, please send us a bowl, but it's blooming close.
Yes, Christmas cake is fine as long as you have lots of icing, lots of marzipan, and as little fruitcake as possible.
On the contrary, Christmas cake requires no icing, no marzipan, and a large slice of Wensleydale cheese.
Mr. Luff, do you have an opinion on this?
Well, I quite like Wensleydale cheese, to be fair.
I knew I liked him for a reason.
And if you want to go down the traditional route, then lots of brandy. Very little icing, and a moderate amount of marzipan.
Well, there we have it. 3 very different opinions on the emotive subject of how do you like your Christmas cake.
But if I had to have one, I'd rather have the fruit one with Wensleydale.
Mr. Luff, welcome to the show.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, what we're talking about, Delia's best cooking for Christmas, yeah? This is the Christmas special, yeah?
This is something like that.
Given our guest, isn't it more likely to be the Easter special?
Is Nigella's Christmas cake better than
the Sainted Delia?
Exactly, the Sainted Delia. Can't say things against Delia.
Not sure. Although I think one thing is certain, and is given our guest, I think making a Christmas cake and feeding it with cooking lager is probably not an option.
I don't know. It probably would be.
Really?
I bet it won't put him off.
You're probably right.
So, welcome to another episode of... Yes, do not retune your podcast download. This is the Meeples and Miniatures Podcast.
And if you hadn't guessed from all the clues...
Indeed. On a show this evening, this is kind of...
The king of cooking lager.
Indeed. The king, the Lord of Lard. It is indeed this evening. We are talking to Mr. Richard Clarke. This is kind of the companion show to episode 184, which came out a couple of shows ago. So on that show, we were talking to Dave Brown, all about Pickett's Charge, and the original intention was to actually have them both on the show at the same time. However, due to some scheduling arrangements and some domestic issues, that kind of went a little bit by the by. So we ended up talking to them 2 or 3 weeks apart. And as we've already explained previously, because we didn't want to give you a 5-hour show, we decided to split all this up and release it in bite-sized chunks.
We're on the food again, aren't we?
So did you like what I did there? So on this show, Mike, Dave, and myself will be chatting to Mr. Richard Clarke all about Reisswitz Press.
At least it was going to be all about Reisswitz Press, and then we started talking to Rich.
Indeed. And actually, what becomes more the distraction with the fact that actually, not only are we talking about Reisswitz Press, but we're talking about what Too Fat Lardies are up to and what's due out imminently as this show comes to be published, which is the new campaign supplement for Sharp Practice 2.
Can't wait.
Indeed. So that's what we got. That's what we got in store for you on this show. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we will have for you Mr. Richard Clarke.
I don't like it, Sergeant. Me neither, sir. Good Lord, it's really looking pretty bad. Yes, sir. It happens every time, sir. It's too predictable, sir. How far do you think we've advanced, Sergeant? 6 inches, sir. It's always 6 inches. We advance 6 inches, then Jerry gets a go. The lads are calling it Hi-Go, You-Go, sir. Hi-Go, You-Go? Good grief. And they don't like it, sir. Oh. Not like it? Seems pretty straightforward to me. Rather like cricket. We have an innings, then the other chap does. Well, that's all very well, sir, cricket, sir, but begging your pardon, it ain't like that, sir, in war. I don't think Mr. Hitler plays like that. What, Hitler? No, gosh, he'd like to go all the time. Oh, Lord, sir, lummy. Well, sir, anyway, sir, it's like this, sir. If it carries on like this, Hi-Go, You-Go, me and the lads won't be coming to your Thursday evening games club, and that's the way it is, sir. Looking for more of a challenge with your World War II games? Are you tired of the predictability of Hi-Go, You-Go systems? Iron Bean Shopman provides real command challenges on an unpredictable battlefield. Too Fat Lardies, playing the period and not the rules since 2002. Pip pip.
Have you ever wondered what's going on in wargaming? We do too. So come with us as we go behind the hobby with the Meeples and Miniatures interview. We're very pleased to welcome back to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. It's the Lordmeister himself, Mr. Richard Clarke. Hello, sir.
Yeah, hi, how are you doing?
Oh wow, great to speak to you again, Rich. It's been too long.
Yeah, probably in the spring when we were talking about Sharp Practice or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. But great to speak to you. So the first question is, how's the extension to the trophy cupboard coming?
Well, funnily enough, we are just about to have some more building work start because we have got to make some more room. Although I have to say, it's not for trophies; it's simply for the amount of toys I keep buying. The problem is with writing rule sets is that you think, oh, I really ought to play test it for this period and that period and see how it works if people decided to use it for Franco-Prussian War rather than this. So you end up buying endless armies just because you really fancy doing it and you've got the excuse to do it. So with Sharp Practice, I think I'm on something like my 11th new army. And of course, with the armies, you then have to get another lot of terrain because obviously you're doing all sorts of bits of games in different theatres, and
you can't play Peninsular Napoleonics on a Russian.
No, you can't.
Step.
Absolutely right. It would be horrific. So yeah, I end up sort of accumulating more and more of what my wife would describe as crap as we go.
Mine calls it tat. I think it would be very wise if we never got them to compare notes.
Yeah, I think you're right. And of course, I call it essentials and tax deductibles. But I never said that. So all of a sudden, having had the extension done sort of whenever it was, 2-3 years ago, we're now in a situation where 3 years ago, we're now in a situation where we're having to get a new building just to really deal with all the additional stuff that I'm buying. And to be honest with you, as we sort of expand the number of rule sets that we're keeping in stock at any point in time, that in itself takes up a hell of a lot of space. So, but no, I mean, we picked up a nice trophy at Crisis for the best participation game. Since we last spoke, we picked up one for the best demonstration game at Partisan in Newark, which isn't in Newark anymore. It's at that showground thingy, which is a fantastic venue. So yeah, we picked up another couple, and they get larger and larger. So
of course, this has been the Viva Las Vegas, hasn't it?
Viva Las Vegas, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think we got an award at Hereward, didn't we, Mike?
No.
Yeah, I thought we came 3rd and a half or something.
Oh yes, true. Yeah, we were only handing a trophy out for first, though.
Yeah, well, who needs trophies, mate? Who needs trophies?
True, but yes,
it's the kudos.
It was a fair old toss-up between you and Matt, I think.
It's the kudos, mate, and that luxury handshake. So so no, it's been the Las Vegas game we've been taking around, which has had its last outing at Crisis, which was a fitting end for a game that's been great fun as we've taken it around the circuit this year. We've certainly had a good laugh with it, but whether it's the best game to show off sharp practice, I'm not sure, but it's certainly a good game if you like singing Viva Las Vegas.
Did the good ship Chlamydia manage to get out your garage this time?
Yeah, the good ship Chlamydia did actually make it to Antwerp after having failed to turn up at Derby.
That's some very accurate shooting it did. Derby.
Yeah, it's excellent shooting. When you're considering it was firing from my garage in St Albans, it was still managing to hit the fort on the table in Derby. But yeah, we had to have the ship slightly further offshore this time in that particular game. But yeah, no, that was a good. Again, Derby, great show. I always enjoy that one. And I think we got a prize for Las Vegas there as well.
I think you did, actually.
I think maybe it's the music. Perhaps I should sing more during games.
So are we to assume that the good ship Chlamydia is in fact armed with M109s?
I think he was using something bouncing off satellites to sort of track the rounds home. But it's the great thing actually about the ship that Nick built, which was actually an old rowing boat model he got on eBay, which was not designed. It was sort of more designed for sort of Action Man size figures. But he knocked it about and cut holes in it and bought little guns and things like that. It's a fantastic looking model, and you almost think, I'm not really sure we had to do a lot more than put that model on the table and just stand there, and we might have won some awards for that, because I think it was his modelling that really got us noticed, because it's a great looking model. It really does look fantastic. But I'm keen to move on to do some AWI games going into the new year, because I really like the way AWI looks at the totally different troop types. You know, you've got everything from really good, aggressive British Grenadiers and light infantry right the way through to the worst sort of militia. And that's where Sharp Practice really does stand out, with showing those different troop types and different troop qualities. So, and I really like the terrain for that. I went up and did a game for War Games Illustrated in Nottingham, and they brought out this really fantastic terrain, which was sort of based around a river going up and some fords and a bridge and whatever, and these houses around that, and it just looked great. And I thought, I really fancy building that terrain, with lots of woodland and pine trees and Indians jumping out of trees and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my plan for the new year, and I'm hoping to knock out some terrain over Christmas and have it ready for Penarth at the end of January, which is our kind of first show of the next season. Well, having said that, I probably won't have done anything about it at all, but we'll see. Whatever I turn up at Penarth with, that's kind of that's what will be there. But
yeah, because that is the one thing that has really come to the fore since Shot Practice 2 has been released, isn't it? Is that the sheer number of different wars, the sheer breadth of what it will cope with, and people have kind of embraced it, and they've been pushing it to its limits in one way, shape, or form in lots of different ways, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the fun, isn't it? The Las Vegas game was based on, which was slavers on the Horn of Arab slavers on the Horn of Africa facing the Royal Navy in the 1840s. Was based on the fact that I did a bit of research in local history, and there was an admiral who used to live in the village where I live, and as a midshipman, that was his first action in the 1840s. And I just thought, I really fancy doing that. And it's because it's, you need 40, 50 figures a side. You think, I'll stick my toe in and do that. It's not like I'm committing myself to paint 2, 3, 4, 500 figures. It's just quite something. If I skive off work, I can knock out in a week. So I skived off work and knocked it out in a week. But there's some great figures out there, and certainly for anywhere in the black powder area, you only have to look at the Perrys, you only have to look at Wargames Foundry. There are some fantastic figure ranges out there.
Well, yeah, the only problem with doing that is it's really, really bad for your wallet very, very quickly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, my wife did say to me, she said, I thought the idea of you producing Wargames rules was to make money at it, not spend all the money on buying new figures. I explained that was a ridiculous idea. I'm not sure she got that one.
One could, of course, argue that you're playing in just entirely the wrong scale. Couldn't one, Mr. Luff?
Oh, let's not get involved in that. I'll upset Mr. Whitaker. That will.
Oh, we're not doing. It's not 6 mil again, is it? This isn't your 6 mil project, Richard.
Yeah, well, 6 mil. Sid's going to try and do it in 2.
2, yeah.
6 mil or 1. 6. You said 1 mil. 6 mil or 15 mil.
Yeah, well, 15 mil, of course, is probably the right ground scale if you need a ground scale. So, which,
as you know, Rich, we play Chain of Command in 15s, and we absolutely love it. We do, because you get that sort of empty battlefield feel. And I mean, some of the diaries that I've read, and I'm sure that you've read as well, Rich, you sort of hear stories where the blokes were always saying, well, I never really saw much of the war. It was sort of going on in the next field, but it was never where I was, sort of thing.
No, that's right. Well, I think the reason I use 28 mil is because when you're doing the show circuit, people rather expect it to be in 28 mil because it looks a bit more grand. And to be really honest with you, I'm in my early 50s and my eyesight's going, and I find it a lot easier to paint 28 mil than I do 15 mil. But I've got a lot of friends, especially in the States, funnily enough, who do play it in 15 mil. That's very much their go-to scale. And there's a guy called Mark Luther down in Georgia, in Atlanta, who's famous for the reports of the games that he puts on for Sharp Practice, doing the AWI on things like TM2.
And I ain't been shot on.
And I ain't been shot on. I mean, 6 mil.
Exactly. They're just absolutely stunning.
Yeah, they are stunning. Yeah, they are absolutely amazing. And it's the wrong scale, and you go, well, clearly it ain't the wrong bloody scale because it looks spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, my first introduction to Sharp Practice 1 was in 15 mil.
Yeah.
Tim Duckworth, who's I think regular on the Lardy's list, he always plays him. He used to play in 15 mil because he only had a small dining room table.
Yeah, which makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. But he's always basically nailed his Colour of the Masters 15 mil for just about everything. And he looks great. But
funnily enough, I was at Crisis the other week, and a chap came up to me, Colin, whose surname I've forgotten, but many, many years ago, he sold me his Maximilian War collection. I'd written an article in War Games Illustrated, and he said, "Oh, I've got." He contacted me and I said he'd got some figures. Would I be interested in buying them? And I bought his collection of them, and I've had them out in 15mm and been dabbling with that for the Maximilian in Mexico, because you think, well, I've got them, I've got them, and they look really good. So. Came up to me at Christ and said, "Have you still got them?" And I said, "Not only have I still got them, I had them on the table last week." It looks good, and you do get a very different game experience because of the feeling of space.
Mm. So we're obviously here to kind of catch up with what's been going on with yourselves,
Yeah.
and obviously. So, as I say, last time we spoke, we were talking about Sharp Practice 2, which I hope has, well, I mean, from what we've been seeing online, appears to have kind of been quite popular.
No,
Yeah.
It's been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I mean, Sharp Practice 1 was always our biggest selling rule set. We sold, well, in the end, I can't remember. I mean, I think it was 36,000 hard copies we had done over the years. I mean, the number of print runs was in the 40s. We just had to keep getting them reprinted. And obviously that was over a sort of 8, 9, 10-year period, however long it was out for. So we haven't sold quite that many yet, but we've certainly nearly sold out with the first print run. We've just got the next print run coming to us. So that's gone very well, and that was the biggest print run we ever had done. Which it's always a worry when you sign on the dotted line and say, "I'll have 6,000 of them, please." But I mean, they've just been hugely popular, and it's nice when something is that hugely popular, because it means I can just go, right, I'm going to get on and really enjoy playing the game, not having to worry about the finances of it. So it's been really good. I've been able to go out there and paint up all these new armies and really, really enjoy playing it. It's unfortunate that I haven't been able to get as much done in terms of supplements for it because of domestic issues we've been having here. But that's certainly something that looks like it's going to be resolving itself in terms of, in the next few months. So I'm hoping that next year is going to be a very, very productive year. But I mean, we are at the point where we're just about to complete the campaign handbook for Sharp Practice, which is...
Pray, tell us more.
Oh, well, tell me more. It's been bloody hard work. That's the first thing that I'll tell you. I wrote at the sharp end for Chain of Command, which again has been, tremendously popular, and it's allowed us to get into doing the pint-sized campaigns, which has been absolutely great and really well received. The fact that people have been able to devise their own campaigns using that handbook or pick up our pint-sized campaigns has really, I think, added a lot to people's gaming. The way you think about the figures on the table, the way you relate to, the decisions you make are influenced by the fact that you're in it for the long haul rather than just a one-off game. But that was quite easy to write, in as much as if you take the First World War and the Second World War, you have generally got a situation where you've got no man's land in the middle, then you've got a line of outposts, and then you've got forward positions, and then you've got a gap, and then you've got main line of defence, and then you've got whatever objective behind that. Of course, the horse and musket period is not like that at all, or not normally. I mean, you could suggest that if you were doing, the siege of somewhere or other in the American Civil War, that or even maybe the siege of Delhi, but it's even so, it's not going to be exactly like that. And horse and musket is a lot more about manoeuvre rather than about working through, breaking into the enemy's position, breaking out and through the lines of defences. So what we've had to do is devise a campaign system which is going to allow the players to have that feeling of decision making in terms of how they manoeuvre around the terrain. And that's actually been really quite challenging to get that done. But we've done it, and we've played 20 odd play test campaigns to polish things up with people all around the world. I mean, just finished a campaign the other day with one guy in New York and another guy in Mexico. We're playing one at the moment with a guy down in the West Country and somebody else up in Scotland. So we've been going, with people playing remotely, playing it by email, and that in its own right, without actually getting figures on the table, has been really fun, because it's people are able to manoeuvre, albeit within a structure which allows it to be controlled and manageable without much paperwork. Because the thing about at the sharp end that I really wanted to achieve with Chain of Command was to make something that made campaigns achievable, that meant that you only had to play 4, 5, 6 games to get to the end of the campaign, which means that people did actually get to the end of a campaign, because historically we all, I'm sure, have experienced, let's do a campaign, and then you play a few games and it kind of runs out of steam, and then the whole thing just dies. What I wanted to do was make it really simple, and that's what we've attempted to replicate with this, albeit using a completely different system for movement and manoeuvre, because that with the at the sharp end, it's very much advancing or retreating up and down a ladder. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we're very close to completing, in as much as we're really just working on the layout now. We've got 3 types of campaign in there, so you could actually play a ladder campaign if you just wanted to play something really, really simple. You've got the ladder campaign, you've got a programmed campaign. So, for example, you put a lot of the work in at the front end there. So I could fight a battle against you. If I win, the consequences, we go on to battle X. If you win, the consequences, we go on to battle Y. And then whichever battle we fight, then that then has its other consequence path.
Sort of Glenaville or Bust-ish.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's use that as a model. Yeah, absolutely. So there's several different paths to get the victory you want. You don't just go up and down ladder fighting battles on battlefield 1, battlefield 2, 3, 4, 5. So that again is quite nice in certain situations, because you can program that at the beginning. Once you've designed it, it's really easy to run, because I've beaten you in this game, so we go to that game. You beat me in the next game, so we go to this other game. Nice and easy. But the narrative campaign is the big one, with which I think is possibly the most exciting one, which is where that we've created a map movement system, which is based on a part of a chessboard. And we have a terrain generator in there, so you can use a historical map, or you can dice up terrain for Northern Europe, Southern Europe, North America, and we'll be sort of adding to that in the future. If somebody wants to do a campaign up the River Amazon, then you'll have very different terrain than if you went up the River Thames. But these are all things that we can add to. But we've gone with Northern and Southern Europe and North America initially, because we feel that that's the areas that are most appropriate. Then we've got a campaign background generator, which is great fun. So you've got 18 totally different backdrops, all of which vary, because the map then is going to be different. So you're never going to play the same campaign twice. So very much like Ducks, Mike, with the table, that of course is a tabletop terrain system. But this is creating the terrain on the map. So once you've got the terrain created, you then roll to see what your background is going to be. Now, you could be guarding the flank of an army. You could be going out with a column to arrest a spy. You could be heading out to demolish a bridge, raise a siege. You could just be going out to collect taxes. All these different little storylines. But don't think of the campaign as being a book. Think of each campaign as being a chapter in a book. So, in chapter 1, you have to escort the general's lady from the castle to the town. Whereas in campaign 2, the general's impressed with what you said, so he says the whole army is going to be moving here, so I need you to take a flank force and go and guard on that flank. And then in chapter 3, you might find he says, right, you're a reliable chap, I need you to go out and arrest a spy. So this is very much like something that you could be reading in a Flashman book, or a Sharp book, or any one of those sort of narrative fictional books. With the full campaign system, you get into things like deciding where you're going to put out your patrols, what role your cavalry is going to fulfill. You know, you could be using it to patrol with, you could be keeping it as a reserve, so if you win a battle, you've got that ready in reserve and you throw that in, and that can potentially, like the end of game situation in Ducks, where that could improve your level of victory by holding those cavalry back and not actually using them in the battle and keeping them as a reserve. And then if you lose the battle, having kept those cavalry in a reserve, you can immediately switch them into a screening force as you withdraw. So there's quite a lot of decisions to be made there. You can also send out detachments and exploring officers. You've got things like signal towers and carrier pigeons. So if I'm defending an area of territory, maybe when I'm choosing my supports for the campaign, I want to get a signal tower rather than a rubbishy old carrier pigeon, so that when I see the enemy troops coming, this is going to warn me of it. All sorts of things which I think are, you know, very much part of what happens in real life. What are the considerations you've got in real life? Have I got enough supplies? Very, very simple supply system, but you can forage for supplies to add to that. But that might just get you identified by the enemy when the locals go to him and says, that horrible bloke keeps nicking my sheep. Good job Mike's not here. Sorry. So then, once you get the game onto the table, you've got a terrain generator for the tabletop game, because an area of land on the map is 5 to 10 miles square.
Mm-hmm.
Could be 5 miles by 5 miles, could be 10 miles by 10 miles. So if I fight a battle against you near the village, and then we fight another battle near the same village, the likelihood is we're going to be on slightly different terrain. So the whole thing really looks after itself, with a few added bits in there, like obviously you've got your casualty system, you know, and how casualties are looked after. That depends whether you've got a doctor with you or whether you've got a priest with you who's got some, you know, learning in the way these things work, or whether you've got a caring lady there to sort of mop the brow of the young subaltern. And then this goes right the way through, so you fight your way through your campaign, typically 3-4 battles in this campaignette, one chapter in the life of our hero, and then at the end of which you're looking at how this chapter has gone for you in terms of how that's improved or affected your influence at court, how that's affected your reputation generally in the army, in the newspapers, and how that's affected your wealth. You know, you might decide you're going to use your wealth that you've earned to oil the wheels for the next campaign in terms of, you know, slipping somebody a few coins to get an additional supply thing, or you might think, well, I'm going to keep that for my retirement. So the whole thing's all about really taking a generic campaign system which you can apply to anywhere in the Black Powder era, and get really, really fantastic narrative campaigns. Because I think that's where sharp practice really, really stands out. I mean, a friend of mine was saying to me, he said, we've played sharp practice and we've done these historical encounters, we've done this battle and that battle, and what they'd done effectively was to take a historical encounter and bathtub it and sort of squash it down and play out a battle. And you think, okay, well, I'm sure that's fine, but if you wanted to refight Battle X, you might have been better off with a game that was designed to fight Battle X. What you really should be doing with a skirmish game like Sharp Practice is really looking for something that is going to add, you know, a bit more flamboyancy, a bit more excitement, something a bit quirky, a bit different. And that's exactly what this system is going to generate for people who really are looking for inspiration in that area. So they could take, very much as with At the Sharp End, they could take the handbook, use it to create their own campaigns, which they might do by taking an historical situation and designing all the background story themselves. Or they might just roll a few dice and get the terrain designed for them and get the background story which is already designed for them, and then just get on with playing it. I mean, you could roll up a campaign in 20 minutes and you know, be ready to give the briefings to both sides. And the nice thing is you don't have, in the majority of situations, you don't have a situation where both sides know exactly what's going on. So the leading side in any campaign might have a mission to get the spy through, whereas the secondary side in the campaign may well think that these people are just marauding about their countryside, bashing farmers over the head. So there's some subtlety in there that the missions are often hidden, and often both sides can achieve an interesting victory of the two different sorts. But that then affects the most important thing is not whether side A beats side B, but it's how the main characters then develop in terms of their reputation, and then you can really follow their careers through. So it's like At the Sharp End. It's a tool, but it's a bit more of a tool in as much as it can literally pre-program whole campaign for you very easily. As you can tell, I'm a bit enthusiastic about it. I've been having great fun with it. We finished the campaign, a really quite funny end to the campaign, where one of the random events was that these two 7 Years' War sides were fighting each other, and the sort of Neo-Prussians, because this was an Imaginations campaign, the Neo-Prussians were holding up and stopping their Neo-Austrian enemies getting a supply train through to this important supply depot. But they fought a battle, and one of their leaders got captured, and it turned out that he was the son of the Grand Duke. So they thought, oh, blimey, we really don't want to get the son of the Grand Duke sort of taken away as a prisoner of war. So they diverted themselves to rescue this Duke, which allowed the Austrians to sneak this the remains of their supply train through, because the Prussians already nicked about 25% of it when they won one victory. So the Austrians get through. But the Prussian player thinks, well, I've nicked 25% of the supply train, so I've done all right. And when he got back, his boss said, yeah, you did a pretty good job there. So his reputation was slightly enhanced with the army. But then he goes to see the Grand Duke and said, great news is that I sacrificed capturing the whole thing because I rescued your son. And the Grand Duke goes, I absolutely loathe the individual. I sent him to war to get him killed. So this guy standing in court is completely destroyed by having gone off in this heroic mission. However, at the other end, the Austrians are just counting in the wagons as they go through. And they have a random event on the very last turn of the campaign, having already lost 25% of the supplies they were getting through. Some rats have been at the supplies, so they'd lost 10%. So that took their victory level down from 75% to, the 50% bracket. So the reputation of that guy was not quite as enhanced as he thought it would have been, despite a hard fight. So you get these situations where people will develop relationships during one campaign, which can then go through into the subsequent campaigns. Mm. So in one of them, they met a doctor because he'd been knocked over the head by some ruffians, so that one of the patrols rescued him, and he joined them for the action during the campaign. Well, in future, that's somebody they know. If they're fighting a campaign in the same area, they can always call on their friend, the doctor. Not that doctor, but the doctor. It creates all this sort of web of contacts. And, of course, the Prussian leader is now desperately trying to find a way to get his reputation back with the Archduke. So we've had a lot of fun with it, and they're, as I say, they should be available for next beginning of December-ish.
Oh, cool! So is this going to be
not Easter?
No, no. Come on. I was going to ask about Easter later.
You're not getting an egg now.
Right. So So are these going to be released in the same format that you did with At the Sharp End? So they're PDF based and.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Now people are going to ask, are you likely to do a hard copy version?
No.
Right.
No, I'm not, and I don't. We do occasionally get asked that. We don't get asked that as much as we used to. The format really, really works for me. That we do the main rules in hard copy, and then we do the supplements in PDF format. It's supplements never sell as many as the main rules. I've got friends who've written rule sets who produce the main rules, which have sold brilliantly, and they have got garages full of supplements that simply just don't sell as many copies. And it just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make financial sense making some money out of a set of rules and then spending it all on supplementary material which sits in a garage, and then you haven't made a profit. And what have you got to live on? Whereas the model that we've had working now for the past 12, 15, whatever it is, years, is hard copy rules, PDF supplements, is one that has worked well for us. And whilst, I'll give you an example, the Raiders for Dax Britanniarum. Raiders for Dax Britanniarum, I think, is a nice add-on to Dax Britanniarum, but it just doesn't sell as well as Dax Britanniarum, and I wish I hadn't done it in hard copy, because I have got an awful lot of them still here. Whereas if we'd done it in PDF, that wouldn't have been an issue. So I'm sure it works if you are one of the companies that are using your rule sets to sell figures, and you have got rules and figures tied up in the same line, because ultimately then the rules are the hook, which are designed to encourage people to buy the figures, and that's where you make your profit. And any profit you make on rules and the ancillary supplementary material is almost incidental and a bit of jam on top. We're not in that situation. In fact, I'm withdrawing entirely from selling figure ranges to go with our rule sets, because it isn't what we're known for. You know, if we start stocking armies, people still will go and buy the armies from the companies that they know of as being the figure sellers. So we focus very much on doing what we're good at, which is producing rule sets, and the supplementary stuff that goes with that is always going to be in PDF format. It is as simple as that, because with most scenario, like the pint-sized campaigns, you print out one page and that's it. It's not as though you need to print out the whole thing. With this, well, do you need to print it out at all? You probably don't, actually. You probably don't need to print this out at all. You can refer to it on your iPad or your computer, and it's all very there, and it's all there, and it's all very simple. I mean, I run campaigns from at the sharp end, and I've never printed it off. So it's not something I'm going to do.
Now, obviously, you just said that the thing you are known for is producing rules.
Yeah,
it's almost a seamless segue, isn't it, into what we want to talk about next? Because you just recently launched a slightly different direction, or at least a supplementary direction for Too Fat Lardies, haven't you? Which is something which you called Reisswitz Press.
I've called it Reisswitz Press, yeah.
Look, I mean, we already had this discussion about, creating a company name that was just far too difficult to pronounce.
What on earth possessed you to call it that, Rich?
Well, I was inspired by a bloke who's got a terrain making thing called Antono something or other Studios or whatever it is.
Antonosity's Workshop, yes. Indeed.
No, that's the one. Because I thought I can't pronounce that, but I'm gonna give it a go myself and have a company where I can't pronounce the name either. No, the reason I called it Reisswitz Press is as a tribute to von Reisswitz, who wrote the original 1824 Kriegspiel rules. And the reason that I felt that that was an appropriate name for the business is that I wanted a company which specialised in producing historical wargaming rules, right, that weren't Too Fat Lardies rules, but were historical rules which were of merit. And it's something that I've been looking at for a long time. And then Dave Brown and I got talking. Dave, obviously, very well known for the stuff he's done in the past with things like General de Brigade, which obviously is one of the absolute standards for Napoleonic gaming. And I've known Dave for an awful long time. I was keen to produce to set up a company which would be of benefit to authors of rule sets, and I just thought it would be a nice idea if we could have a business that was bit of a collective, if you like, where which was there for the benefit of the people who were writing the rules, which then would encourage them to be able to produce more stuff in the future.
So why not just publish it as Too Fat Lardies with a different rules author?
With a different...
Yeah, so you have it, so, okay, this is a, Dave Brown writes a set of rules, but it's published under a Too Fat Lardies banner as opposed to another publication.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. No, I feel very strongly that Too Fat Lardies is a brand that means something quite specific in terms of a specific type of game and genre of game, in terms of looking at those aspects of things like battlefield friction and a huge big emphasis on command and control. Now, interestingly enough, Pickett's Charge that Dave has written has got a fantastic emphasis on command and control, and I really, really like the command and control system in there. But what it isn't is a Lardy system, and I think it would be unfair. I think it would be unfair to saddle Dave with the Too Fat Lardies banner, because he produces stuff that's very much his own work and is not a sort of variation on a theme of what we do. Right. And so I think that would be quite wrong, and I think that would potentially be misleading to customers. I think the nice thing going forward is, as Dave develops more rule sets, is that people will associate that with Pickett's Charge as being a brand that represents good, high quality, historical based war games rules, but not tied up particularly with Too Fat Lardies and some of the baggage that goes with that, because some people simply won't buy rules from Too Fat Lardies because they have preconceived ideas about who we are and what we are and how silly we are. I don't want to saddle anybody else with that.
So what particularly attracted you about this set of rules?
Well, playing the game, which is obviously the first thing that I do. When somebody comes to me and says, would you be interested in working together on this? I'll say, yeah, I'd love to see the rules. And I went down and met Dave a couple of years ago when these were, in fairly early stages. And the thing that I really like about them was the fact that you had that emphasis on command and control, which I think is really, really interesting. I think there's some real parallels actually with the command and control system and with what we've done with Sharp Practice in terms of how commanders use their ability to enhance the performance of their troops. Now, I'm not saying the system's the same, but what I'm saying is that it's interesting that Dave and I have been clearly thinking about things in a similar way. But what I really did like about it was that this is very definitely the next generation of rule sets going forward. If you compare it with General's Brigade, you are looking at a much, much sleeker product. Now, that's not criticism of General's Brigade, because if you look at Sharp Practice 2 and Sharp Practice 1, which, again, we're looking at 8, 9, 10 years between the two of them, I think Sharp Practice 2 is a vastly superior product. I think things have moved on over the years, but I really do think what Dave has done is he has very effectively and very efficiently distilled down what he thinks is important in combat in the American Civil War. And he's created from that a very, very streamlined, fast play, efficient set of rules, which still has a very, very interesting emphasis on command and control. It isn't move, shoot, morale, move, shoot, melee, morale like the old sets of rules. At the start of each turn, there is an interesting, and I really like it, really enjoyable command phase where you actually have to make command decisions, and then you put your money where your mouth is in terms of putting your staff officers on the table and trying to influence that battle. What you then do in terms of working through how the rest of the turn plays through is really nice and streamlined. It's not difficult. I can pick them up and read them and understand them. And that is saying something. The main reason that I write rules is I'm too bloody lazy to read rules. So it's an awful lot easier for me to write my own than to try and read anybody else's. But the nice thing about Pickett's Charge is that they are easy to read. They were easy to read when Dave produced his first edition for us. What you may well know is that we had the layout done by a good friend of this show, Henry Hyde. And Henry, obviously with his skills in design, graphic design, has made them even easier to read. I think it's a beautifully put together publication, and I think that the combination of what Dave has done in terms of streamlining the rules and what Henry has done in terms of maximising the effectiveness of the presentation has really created a fantastic set of rules. But they're not a Lardy set of rules, and so it would have been wrong to saddle them with everything, all the baggage that goes with the Lardy brand. I'm quite happy to carry that baggage around myself, but I wouldn't do it to anybody else. But yeah, no, I think they're a really, really exciting game. In fact, funnily enough, I was speaking to Dave only today, and I said, I want to come down and have another game. And he said, is this the sort of publicise? I said, no, I just really want to play another game because I really am enjoying it.
Which is, let's face it, the best reason of all.
Yeah, it is the best reasonable. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll go down there and I'll say, we'll take some photos, and then I'll forget to do that. And so it will be of zero benefit in terms of business marketing or anything. But I will have had a great game. What normally happens is I take a load of photographs at the start of the game and then turn one. And then I get sucked into the game. And at the end, I think, I better take a load of pictures now because I didn't take any because I was too busy enjoying the game.
Done that.
Yeah, and then when you get home, you realise all your photographs of the backs are of the back of your own troops, because you're photographing your fantastic victory as you thrust forward with this brigade towards their objective. So you have lots of pictures of horses' backsides and the back of men's heads.
It's one of the reasons I enjoy umpiring.
Yeah,
that you get time to step back and take photos. And it's also why Andy and I playing Ducks Brick, we pretty much have an agreed photography break at the end of every turn.
Well, so you should with his figures and your fantastic terrain, because I mean those games are a joy to behold. Dave is looking forward to a set of Napoleonic rules. We've got a couple of things in the pipeline which I'm excited about. In fact, I'm going to have my first game of the Napoleonic set with Dave in 10, 12, 13, 14, a couple of weeks' time. So I'll be able to report back on them on my blog probably, because I'm looking forward to seeing what he's done with them, because General de Brigade was such a staple in the wargaming diet.
Yeah,
I bet there are not many wargamers who haven't played General de Brigade, and it will be great to see what he's done with them. I really like the command and control system, and I'm sure anybody who's played it and played Sharp Practice 2 will know what I mean when I say, if you look at when you put a couple of staff officers with a brigade to try and enhance its performance to do X, it's very similar to playing two of those command cards to try and improve that unit's importance to do X. So it was great to see that, Dave and I have been thinking of sort of similar ways about certain issues. Yeah, very excited about that. And Reisswitz Press is kind of in its infancy. Well, it is in its infancy. But going forward, I am keen that we develop and expand that out so we can bring other authors on board. But what I want to do is develop a long-term working relationship with authors who are going to stay with us and help build the Reisswitz brand. And so it's going to be up there. And people will know that, people know when they buy a Too Fat Lardies set of rules, what they're going to get. And I hope that in the future, people will know what Reisswitz Press means in terms of high quality historical wargaming. And, that is not to say I've got anything against sci-fi and fantasy, but I do think that there are publishing houses out there who are doing a fantastic job in promoting those genres. I want to focus on promoting historical stuff. And big battles, for example, is not something that Too Fat Lardies really do. So it's very, very complementary to what Dave has done is very complementary. If you want to play a big battle of ACW, well, you've got Pickett's Charge. If you want to play a skirmish, you've got quite possible to play a really interesting ACW campaign, especially something like Jackson in the Valley, where you had big armies manoeuvring, but you also had small forces going out on patrols and flank guards and so on and so forth. That could be quite fun, couldn't it? He said, speaking aloud. Speaking aloud, yeah. So, that's what prompted Reisswitz Press.
Okay, so obviously, Pickish Charge has been out for a few weeks now. I mean, have you got another title in the pipeline for Reisswitz at the moment?
Well, we're working with Dave, and he's been play testing his Napoleonic rules, and has just had a weekend at the War Games Holiday Centre, where they had a whole host of people controlling a whole host, 200 battalions per side. He was telling me earlier today, which is that's a big battle in anybody's books. 200 battalions of infantry plus cavalry and artillery on a 3-day battle. So that was kind of late stage playtest. I am speaking to a few people who've approached me and said, "Look, we're interested in talking to you." But as always, I think the key thing for me is that I've got to feel that it's going to be a product that enhances the brand as well as the brand enhancing the product. So it's always a case of talking to people, getting to play the game, and then making a decision based on whether I feel it's going to fit with what we're looking to do with the company and how we take that forward. So having launched the Pickett's Charge, which has been very successful, we're really pleased with the way that that's gone, because it is a completely new venture, and you just don't know how it's going to go. But I think those rules really do look the business, and I think they play a fantastic game. We're now taking it a step at a time. What I'm not doing is saying, anybody who sends me a set of rules, I'll publish it, because I'm not at that point. But what I am keen to do is to talk to people who are interested in having their rules published and seeing how we can work with them, and whether what they're producing is appropriate for us and whether we're appropriate for them.
Good stuff.
It's interesting. It's interesting. It's a challenge. I mean, over the years, I've been thinking about how to take the business forward, and there's a limit to how much I can produce. And the thing I don't want to do is start rushing rule sets out when they're not ready. I want to take things have their gestation period, and you have to allow them to take as long as they do. So, aspiring to produce a set of rules every year is absolutely the maximum you can do. And we don't really achieve or do that. I mean, the last set of rules we published was 3 years ago, so there's been a 3-year gap between Chain of Command and Sharp Practice coming out. Because that's how long it takes to produce a set of rules and get to the point you're happy with. So the way to expand the business is not for me to start churning out any amount of old crap that I can write. It's got to be looking at other people doing that work, and it's got to be looking at working with people like Henry who can bring skills that are way beyond any skills that I've got in terms of doing presentation. Because whilst I've always said I try and make the next set of rules look better than the last one, Henry's just really showed me up entirely. It's not a quantum leap; it's just a huge leap to what he's done with Pickett's Charge, and I'm really pleased with the work he's done, and it really just proves the guy's capabilities. And so we are very much talking to Henry, and I want Henry to be part of the business going forward. I want that to be, again, the same as I want the relationship with rules authors to be a long-term relationship. I want the same thing with people like Henry, so that we have a consistency of quality of the products that we're producing. Okay,
so that kind of covers Reisswitz and the idea behind that. Okay, so Pickett's Charge is now available, and
at the moment we are having to put Reisswitz Press on the Too Fat Lardies website, and there's always going to be a link between the two businesses. But we are, as we go forward, we're looking to develop the Reisswitz thing in tandem as a separate brand. So
yeah, but
for now, Too Fat Lardies is where you'll find it. But yeah.
Okay, so obviously you hinted the fact that it's been, well, up until Sharp Practice came out, it has been 3 years since you last wrote a set of rules, and obviously people who know you will know of some of the issues behind that. And so in the meantime, you've been doing things like the point size campaigns for Chain of Command and what have you. So dare we especially with the fact that you obviously went to Crisis this year, and we all know that what happens as far as Too Fat Lardies development on the way back from Crisis. And of course, this time round, we saw your assault on Hougoumont and everything previous to Crisis as well. Documented on Twitter for all to see. So the question becomes, what's coming out at Easter?
Well, nothing. We do have. Well, the pipeline is fairly full. We've obviously got the Christmas special coming up next, which isn't going to be Easter. It's going to be December. We have got the campaign supplement Dawns and Departures. If anybody is going to be the name for the Sharp Practice campaign supplement that we've discussed. Anybody recognise the name Dawns and Departures?
I've got a feeling I should.
You should.
It's from a memoir, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh.
Dawns and Departures.
I have cheated and Googled and I'm giggling.
Yeah. Dawns and Departures of a Soldier's Life is the fictional memoirs of Sir Harry Flashman. And,
I did know that.
Yeah. Well, we all knew it. We all know it, but it's tucked away in the recesses of our alcohol-soaked brains somewhere. So I just thought it was a lovely title and very appropriate because the types of campaigns you can fight are very much in the genre of Flashman. But so that's coming up equally in January, and our chums at Warbases have been very kind to produce some of the support options that you might need for the campaign there, and they're going to be bringing them out in December as well. That's going to be some signal, the semaphore flag arm waggy things. Sort of
knowing Warbases will be just as awesome as their carts and everything else they've done.
They are. In fact, Martin sent me a photograph of the prototype today, and he's actually got a little printout of the alphabet in semaphore, so you can set, when you buy it, you'll be able to set your semaphore flag. He sent me a message beginning with F, which I thought was interesting, but we won't go into that. Anyway, but so it's he's doing that. He's doing a sort of brazier in which to light your warning fires, and he's also doing a little pigeon coop from which to unleash your messenger pigeon, saying the evil people are nearly upon us. So that he's done a great job there. So we're going to be pointing everybody in his direction, as we did with the cart set that he did for us. So that'll be good. We have got a couple of pint-sized campaigns, one on Kursk and one on Cohiba, which are coming through. We have got the 1812 supplement, which Mr. Welsh Wizardly Hobbs has written, and the only thing that's delayed that is I've been so close to getting the Dawns and Departures right that I thought I don't want to put 1812 out when maybe there's some stuff we can take from Dawns and Departures and put it into the campaign supplement for 1812. But to be fair, what Mike has produced is not a pint-sized campaign. It really is a really great guide to the whole of the War of 1812 in North America. And he follows the fortunes of one particular regiment in a really nice way. So that makes for some really interesting gaming. But so we should have had that completed by now, but we haven't done because of Dawns and Departures. So that's coming through. Then, well, what's new, Pussycat? Well, on the way back from Crisis, my little chum, Fat Nick, and I were sat in the car going, right, what are we going to do? I tweeted a picture of a map yesterday on on Tweety Twitterland. What I've done is I've taken a 1 to 25,000 map, a GSGS, a 1944, April 1944 map of, well, the area which covers the northeast of Calm, so Ousterham, Pegasus Bridge, you've got the whole...
It's quite a favourite area of yours, isn't it?
Well, I'd said to the printer last week, can you do me a map? And he said yes. And then I didn't get him the information on time, so I just randomly went, oh, that'll do, print this out. So he's printed me out these. So basically what I'm keen to do is develop a set of rules which you can use on a tabletop or on a map with maybe 10 mil figures or micro armor, whereby what we've done with the map is we've blown it up to twice its normal size. So tomorrow we're going to have a day's workshop on looking at how viable that will be, and we're going to play we're going to play part of Operation Charnwood, which was the operation that finally broke through the German defences to the north of Caen. So it's going to be an interesting evening tonight, printing out some counters and bits and pieces, because I'm keen to do it with small-ish figures and tanks, so you can use it for a tabletop battle. But at the moment, in the prototype stage, we're just going to be using cardboard counters or laminated counters. But it's something I'm really keen to do, because we have always focused on company level, platoon level, and looking at the detail. I've always wanted to do this, and I did start writing a set of rules for doing this some time ago. But that was more battalion, and I'm thinking now maybe this should be more sort of brigade to divisional size actions. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes tomorrow. So that's quite an interesting project we've got on the go. Yeah. Fighting season, of course. Oh,
funny enough, that was on my list of things to ask you about.
Well, do you know what? At Crisis, the Murphy's Heroes from Delft in the Netherlands, which is really called Holland, but they pretend it's called the Netherlands, they were doing a game of Fighting Season, which got everybody talking, and really, including me. They were doing it in 20 mil. It really was a fantastic looking game. And the only reason that we had an issue, if you recall, where all that happened was that Sharp Practice was sort of ready before Fighting Season was ready. I had some involvement in doing some development of training stuff with the army, and on the back of that, I've met some people who I need to spend some time talking to and getting their views and opinions on how we can really develop the campaign system, because I felt that we were at the point where the game itself on the tabletop was great. The only problem is that the game itself on the tabletop really needs to be part of a campaign which covers a tour of duty. You really want that in order to get the feel and appreciation of what it is like to be serving in that situation. To fight an abstract game doesn't really do it for me. And it's been getting that campaign system right that has been such a challenge.
It's that magic word context again, isn't it?
It really is, and there's a different context depending on which nationality you're talking to in Afghanistan, because you have different levels of political acceptance of casualties. Some nations, you really literally, as soon as somebody broke the fingernail, there was potential for it to be end X, operation, abort the operation, come home. And I'm being slightly flippant there, and I shouldn't be flippant because it's an extremely serious issue. But there are huge differences between the different factions out there, in terms of how much blood that they were prepared to be allowed to shed. And I'm talking about governments here, not soldiers.
Yes.
Because how the newspapers at home would read was a huge issue for the national governments. And some countries were taking it in a different way to others. So that's made the issue very, very complicated. But it is something that we haven't abandoned. It's just that when you produce something like Sharp Practice, you can't just go, there you go, there's the rules, I'm off. You have to work on supplementary material. Like we've done a lot of work in terms of producing additional lists. We've done a lot of work in terms of producing additional material like the campaign handbook. You have to stick with that set of rules and support that. Otherwise, people aren't getting the deal that they hope that they're buying into. So until I get everything, and of course we have touched on the fact that I had a bad year last year because my mother-in-law went crackers, and I had a bad year this year because my mother's gone crackers. So it's really been quite a difficult time in terms of me being able to devote as much time as I'd like to the business. But obviously, from a moral perspective, I think I would be a worse person if I put my business first and family second. So I've made that decision. So on we go. Don't want to dwell on that. But it has meant that I haven't been able to produce all the supplementary material that I would like to for either Chain of Command. I mean, the 2 Chain of Command pint-sized campaigns have been with me for over a year and should have been finished, but just, life hasn't allowed that to happen. So I really need to take some time out over the next year to get all of those things that I want to produce, more pint-sized campaigns for Chain of Command, campaigns for Sharp Practice, more army lists available to assist people who are using the rules. So going ahead, I'm quite happy to dabble with stuff like Nick and I are looking at this map thing in terms of, enjoying doing that as an interesting exercise. But whether that actually comes to fruition in terms of being produced as a set of rules, that's probably 2 or 3 years away. Although the one good bit of news is that the Boer War rules are going to be included in the Christmas special in full as a giveaway.
Ray!
Yeah.
It's going to be a big issue then.
Well, I might be selling big issue. You never know, do you? Well, hopefully it will be a big issue. Yeah. The plan is for it to be a bumper issue. And the Boer War rules it was clear that there's a lot of people saying, please, can we have them? Not many people, about 6, which is about as many as I thought we were ever going to sell. And it just seemed cruel because they are ready. It seemed cruel just to keep them there. And I thought, well, the easiest way to make them accessible to people is to put them in a Christmas special. I mean, that does make, at £6, that does make the Christmas special, I think, extraordinarily good value because you are getting a whole set of rules. Plus, you're going to be getting at least, 100 pages of other stuff as well on top of that, including all the data for the Horn of Africa stuff from Sharp Practice and, lots of other bits and pieces. So, I mean, it will be packed with stuff anyway. And I am hoping to have a nice campaign in there for I Ain't Been Shotman as well, Mike. So
that'll make me happy.
Yeah, quite. So so it is going to be a bumper issue, and it is hopefully going to be great value, because I think those rules are good and interesting rules. Whether they are commercially viable at all is another issue, because I think they're too close to a simulation. I think we've discussed this before, I'm sure. They're too close to a simulation. Although I find them tremendous fun because they're tremendously challenging. And it's a bit like a video game that where you start it off, you're really, really rubbish. And by the time you get to the end of it, you're really, really good. And that replicates the learning curve that the British had to go through from, when they had their first action and really were struggling to deal with, tactics and how to use them. And right the way through to the end where the Boers simply couldn't stand up against them in conventional warfare and therefore had to move to the more partisan Boer aspect of the Boer War. So I think it's a fun and interesting game, and I hope that people who are interested in the period will enjoy it. But so that's that. But for the future, it's kind of I'm hoping that we get some more stuff coming through with Reisswitz Press. That's probably going to be the next thing. I hope it's going to be the Napoleonic rules from Dave Brown there. And for me, it's consolidation and attempting to provide the support for Chain of Command and Sharp Practice that I should have done. And I feel that's been to the detriment of the rules, to be honest with you, because we are finding that we've had a huge spike in sales of Chain of Command in the last couple of months. And I just wish there was more stuff available for people in terms of support material. We are putting out a whole raft of mid-war army lists in the Christmas special again, which is good news for the Eastern Front, because that mid-war bit is really the bit that was missing. We'd sort of done Blitzkrieg and the Far East but we haven't done mid-war, so it would be nice to get that mid-war bit covered, and then we can go into some of the more exotic units. But so there's lots of plans for lots of interesting stuff, but no real sort of big rule set at the moment because we're playing a bit of catch up.
Would now be a bad time to ask about the 2 outstanding army list supplements for I Ain't Been Shotman?
It would be a terrible time to ask that.
All right, I shan't then.
No. Actually, somebody is working on that. Somebody has taken the burden from me there. So we'll see what comes of that. Because
And the almost mythical World War II naval rules?
Hello Sailor. No, they're not happening.
That will be them. Okay.
Yeah, they're not happening. We played Hello Sailor again the other week, and we had a really fun game of it. But they'll probably end up in one of the specials because they are a fun game. But once we let them loose on the naval wargaming fraternity, they were very disappointed that there weren't enough millimeters to consider and not enough bolts to be counted.
I don't know about anybody else, but that wouldn't be what I was looking for anyway. So, expecting from you.
No, what Nick did with Kiss Me Hardy was kind of what we were aiming to do with the World War II naval rules, which was to produce a set of World War II naval rules for people who don't play World War II naval wargaming.
Yeah.
But that isn't.
Sounds right up my street.
Yeah, well, that's look to the future.
Let's face it, you can't produce rules just for me.
No, I can't. No,
Although that said, your last few productions do seem to have succeeded.
Well, it's like everything. It's a set of rules that they gave me the game that I wanted, and to have taken them any further in terms of adding on more and more layers of detail would have stopped them being what I wanted them to be. But at the same time, they were not a complete rule set because they only dealt with actions of a certain size. I mean, you could refight some fairly large actions, but for me, they were sort of ideal for Battle of the River Plate and things like that. Which and anything that was made into a British film in the 1950s.
That does cover most of the World War II naval action.
Yeah, right.
I mean, there wasn't really a Jutland.
No, exactly. No, there wasn't. No, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So there's no reason why it won't find its way into one of the specials. But in terms of making it into a set of rules, no. Algae is the one I really would like to do and get done. Because I was really pleased with where we were going with Algae, and it just never quite finished it off. But these projects, if you try and force it, if I sat down and said, right, it's Monday morning, I'm going to finish off Algae, and I'm going to work and work and work and work until it's done, the end result will be blooming awful. Because you've got to be inspired. It's an artistic process rather than a mechanical process, and so. I'll wait until one day the enthusiasm will pop up, and I'll jump on it and we'll wrestle with those, and then they will emerge resplendent. But until then, I'd kind of leave them where they are and let the enthusiasm take me down whatever route I want to go down, and hopefully that is a process that works. It does mean I waste a lot of time doing things that don't come to fruition, but. Sometimes, that's not a bad thing. At least you're thinking about development of rules and different mechanisms and things like that. And you can somewhere along the line, you think that's a nice mechanism. And you might not use it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but then one day you think, that's a perfect fit. So nothing is time wasted, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I guess you could get your own back and hold my feet to the fire for the Duxbury Compendium.
I'm too polite to mention.
I know, which is suffering for a bit from the fact that Andy's been playing other games, and I refuse to let people at scenarios that haven't been thoroughly play tested.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You've got to do that a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I also, it is that kind of creative process is a bit of a when you have to be inspired and in the mood.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if you're not, you can't be creative.
You can't force it.
No, you really can't. It's a bit like music, isn't it, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, people would find it remiss of me if there were not two other near mythical rule sets that I mentioned. Obviously, since the Welsh Wizard isn't on this particular show, I'm going to have to do my Welsh Wizard impression, which I won't because I'm rubbish at a Welsh accent. But and ask about Kiss Me Hardy 2.
Now that is fun. That is fun. Any time that anybody wants to play Kiss Me Hardy 2, I'll play it. That game is it's embryonic, but it is great fun. I've no idea what's happening. Nick and I have got a whole workshop day tomorrow, so I'll ask him. Actually, lazy git. He should have done more with that. But that is a good game. I'm not sure if Mike ever played 2. I don't think he did.
He never did. He played 1.
And Evesham.
And immediately when he turned around to Nick after that and said, I think that's where he kind of turned around and said,
that's right.
"Excuse me, we need a second edition of this."
Yeah. Well, the second edition is a bit like the second edition of Sharp Practice. It's kind of got not very much to do with the first edition, but that doesn't make it a bad thing. It's the system that he's got there is really swish. It really is good, and I can't tell you about it. But it's, believe you me, it's fantastic. Yeah. But yeah, I'll have a word with him tomorrow and we'll find out, which will be far too late for your listeners to find out. I hope we're not going to be on the phone for another 8 or 9 hours. But so it's there. It's there in the background. But we ought to do more with it because it is a good game and we've got all the toys and we've got as many blue sheets as you want, and we ought to crack on with it because it's at the moment the games we've had of it have been hugely fun and very, very simple to run, which for any naval game I think is a positive thing. And what was the other one then? Even I can't think what the other one might be.
Well, the other one has to be In the Buff.
Well, I thought I was being unfair with I ain't been shot by myself for this.
Interesting because I seem to remember having a conversation several years ago where we were talking about the fact that you were struggling to sort out the cavalry rules were in the buff.
That's right.
And you ended up going away and wasn't it the Boer War rules that ended up coming out of that?
Yeah.
Yes, and so now you just said you're publishing the Boer War rules, so obviously that means that you must have got somewhere.
No. No, I've got nowhere near it sorting out the cavalry issue for In the Buff. I mean, In the Buff is a great infantry game, but cavalry they're a bit. It's a bit like aircraft in World War II games. You know that they've been bolted on, and nobody's really thought about the rules. And
it's a bit like aircraft in World War II games that they're here and then they're gone.
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah.
Watching the way Prince Rupert usually behaved.
Yeah, well, that's right. So it's, you think, I won't bother making many rules for them because they're here and then they're gone. But that doesn't necessarily apply to all English Civil War cavalry, and certainly, once you get past that initial phase, it becomes a lot more complicated, and it's the way they react is the bit that I'm struggling with. I mean, I am fairly certain that if we actually got it back on the table and started doing it again, we would get a solution.
Finding the right abstraction.
It is, and I have kind of got the armies, but they are at that awful stage where they are in the process of being rebased, and have been in the process of being rebased for an awful long time, because I look in the box and I go, they're being rebased, and then I shut the box.
Does that not require you to figure out to what standard you want them to rebase, which requires you to write the rules?
Well, no, I mean, I know what the rebasing should be, but the main frustration is I bought the wrong size bases, so I haven't got round to buying the right size bases. And it's just that looking at these blooming figures and thinking about rebasing them is not a pleasurable thing. Interestingly or not, with the building work, one of the things that's going to happen with the building work that we're about to start on is that the new building is going to have a workshop area, and one of the reasons for that is so that I can get projects like that out on a huge workbench and rebase them on an industrial scale. So they are being thought about. They were even designed into the new building. So it's there somewhere. It's a period I enjoy, and I think you could do an awful lot with it. I think it's quite quite an exciting period. I mean, we played a game last night at the club in 2mm. Young Sidney Roundwood doing the 30 Years' War in 2mm.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. What rules were those?
Well, they're the rules that he calls in the buff, being a thieving monkey. But they're nothing to do with in the buff. But it was made for an interesting game. Made for a very interesing game, largely because I couldn't see what was going on.
Is that Fog of War, Rich?
No, it's I took the wrong spectacles. But it's
well, especially with 2mm, that does make a bit of a difference, doesn't it?
Actually, they were really nice figures. They were irregular miniatures, 2mm figures, and the idea is totally absurd. But when you've got your Swedish formation brigade and your, Dutch formation brigade or whatever they are on the table, it really looks it. And we had a tercio on the table. It really looked the business. It really did look good. The rules were bloody awful. But we've told Sid that we'll work with him on them, and I'm sure we'll get to. Actually, some of the rules there were some fantastic ideas in the rules, really good. We've just got to get some nitty gritty little frustrating bits ironed out. But we played the game and we finished early and had a sort of round table discussion as we do, sort of hothouse sort of thing. And I said to him, look, these are all issues that we can sort out fairly rapidly. So we'll toss some ideas in the hat, and he wrote them down and went away with it. But some of the ideas that he put into the game to make it appropriate for the period are really, really good fun. I mean, we had to allocate a certain proportion of our army to go off and do pre-game scouting, and that affected them. We may have done well at scouting out where the enemy are, but those Croats I sent off to scout for them didn't really come back. And then halfway through the game, there they were raiding the enemy's baggage train right off on the far side of the battlefield. So that was a really interesting idea, because it's how much you're making decisions at the front end that are going to affect the game for itself. And then at the back end, it's your force morale, which he's using the basic force morale system you got in things like Chain of Command and Sharp Practice. And he's saying, well, as long as you keep your reserve, your army reserve, uncommitted, your force morale is quite difficult to knock your force morale down, because your troops are thinking, we're okay, we've still got the reserve. But once you commit that reserve, the force morale can come tumbling down a lot more readily. Just really interesting ideas. I think wow, this is great. It's really good to see him looking at the history of the period and saying, how did this happen? What impact did this have? At what point? So once you commit your army reserve, you're either at the point where you think you're going to win and win big fast, or you're at the point where you think you're going to lose unless you do something desperate. Mm. So I was inspired by that. But this is one of the problems that we have, is that when we're doing these development games, some of them never see the light of day because they just create. They're really interesting to play, and but they have a lifespan of their own, and maybe that will then become a huge, hugely successful set of rules for the 30 Years' War, if such a thing could happen. Or maybe it will just be something we dabble with and play through for the next 2 or 3 months, and then think, okay, well, it's good fun, but it's not a commercial project, and we just use it for our club games. And maybe it'll see something in one of the specials at some point in time. But that's you've got to kiss a lot of frogs, really, when designing rule sets. You've got to be prepared to go and give it a go, only to discover, well, that one ain't a prince, and move on to the next one.
Well, Rich, thank you very much for sharing what's going on with Too Fat Lardies at the moment. I mean, it certainly seems that, as always, lots and lots going on. I mean, obviously, we're looking forward, first and foremost, to Dawns and Departures.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Yes, so as you said, so that's going to be with us by the end of the year, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. I'm hoping early December. We're just doing the layout, and I have, after Henry did such a good job on Pickett's Charge, I phoned him up and said, look, Henry, because I've just shifted onto a Mac, not a big Mac, a Mac rather than a desktop PC.
Okay.
And so all...
what prompted that then?
I can't remember. My computer blew up, I think.
Oh.
So I've been meaning to do it for
Good
years,
choice.
to be honest with you. I've been meaning to do it for years, and my daughter said... My daughter's studying journalism at university, and she said, you've got to go on a Mac. They're so much better for layout and design. So anyway, I phoned up Henry and I said, look, Mr. Henry, smarty pants, layout and design man, I'm coming down to Brighton, and you're gonna show me the magical secrets of using all this Adobe package that I pay 45 quid a month for and have no idea what I'm doing with it. So I'm going down, and Henry's going to teach me InDesign. And the thing I'm taking down with me is Dawns and Departures. So that's going to be our sort of case study for Henry, teaching me how to use the sort of new software. So that's next week, and I'm working on the fact.
So.
Yeah, well, I'm working on the basis that he shows me how to do it. I think this is brilliant. I come home and then have forgotten how to do it, and then have to take another 2 weeks reteaching myself what he taught me because I'm a cretin. So on that basis, I reckon early December is the best thing that we can look at.
Right.
Know your limitations. That's my motto.
Indeed. So obviously, so Dawns and Departures, then Christmas special, and then, as you say, so next year, just lots of support for existing products, and then we'll see where we go from there with whatever inspiration suddenly seizes you. For the sound of things.
Yeah, I won't tell you about the project I've completely forgotten about, which is Ancients, but there we are. We'll leave that for another time.
I did wonder whether to mention it because I seem to. We had a conversation at, I think it was Derby, and you did happen to say, "Oh, by the way, no, I think it was Partisan, wasn't it? It was. Oh, by the way, Ancients." I thought, ooh, that sounds interesting.
Ancient sharp practice is the thing that I'm currently yearning after. I have a big box here that Warlord Games sent me, full of Roman auxiliaries and hairy German people, not real ones. It's 28mm.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, an Ancients version of Sharp Practice might be fun. And I've got some really funky ideas with what to do with the command cards, and lots of fun stuff with reading things like the Cato and Macro books.
Yes. I mean, especially with the huge growth in historical fiction and all that stuff based around ancient Rome. Funny enough,
next week's guest.
See next week's guest because we're speaking to Dr. Harry Sidebottom. Funny enough, but yeah, there has been this massive growth in that genre of writing over the last few years, hasn't it? And that that's a massive thing to be able to dip into, isn't it?
Oh, it is, and they're great fun, aren't they? And you can't help but what happened was I was in. I'm sorry about this. I know you were trying to wrap your show up there and get rid of me, but
no,
here we go. I went down to Sainsbury's. I can't remember why. I was
cooking lager. Got to be cooking lager.
Probably cooking lager. I went down to Sainsbury's and I thought, what I need is a book to read. Now, just take my brain out book. So I went in the book section and there's a book for 30 bob. And £1.50. Oh, that's fair enough. So I bought it, and it was one of the Macro and Cato books. And I thought,
Simon Scarrow, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I thought,
which I'm a huge fan.
Ooh, this is fun. This is not just fun. This is more than fun. And when I was a kid, I had Latin ran down my throat at school. And believe it or not, I loved it. I really loved Latin when I was
I knew I liked you for a reason.
Yeah, I really love Latin. And of course, when you do your Latin translation, it isn't just about learning Latin. The reason I loved it, it's a window on another world in history. And so the whole Roman society thing is something that's always intrigued me. Yeah,
Did they make you translate chunks of De Bello Gallico as well?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. So I can never look at a set of bellows in the same light. But it was absolutely fantastic stuff that, you using stuff written by Caesar as your textbook. So I've always fancied having a go at that. And so now I've bought the figures. But that's one of those projects, a bit like Sid's project, that we might well get it. I paint all these figures up and we get it on the table and we'll go, that was bloody awful. and then it won't go anywhere. So it doesn't count as a forthcoming project because it might be a short and fast burning candle that disappears very rapidly. But if it goes as well as I hope it will, well, there could be a set of rules there in 8 years' time.
I mean, it's interesting that
Easter.
Easter. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Continuing this short diversion at the end of our chat, why you would choose Sharp Practice 2 as opposed to Dux Britanniarum?
Okay,
because I mean, initially you think, well, hang on a second, you've got a set of kind of ancient-ish rules, which is Dux. So why not do an obstructed Dux as opposed to Sharp Practice?
Because Sharp Practice 2 is a variation on Dux. The command flags, the command cards in Sharp Practice 2 are the Dux cards, but rather than you having whatever cards you hold, the flags are whatever card you want them to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Dux is actually a movement on from Dux Britanniarum, in a way. And I like the idea. How about this? Now, this is Macro and Cato, or this is Vespasian, one of these other, Robert Fabry writes these Vespasian books.
Or Warrior of Rome.
Yeah, that's right. Everything of Rome, it's, the dressmaker of Rome is probably the next one or something like that. But so imagine this. So there you go. You've got your force lined up, your 60 or so legionaries or whatever. And as they move on their own card, but the command cards in Sharp Practice are what initiates them doing drill. So the huge hairy barbarians are running down the hill towards them. Whoa! And all of a sudden, me as the Romans, I pick up a command card, one of the flags. I go, right, unleash pillar. And the blokes chuck their pillums at them. And then I do, open ranks to allow the skirmishers to fall back through. And then with the next command cards, I shut ranks. And so the command cards become the point in the drill manual of doing whatever you do. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So the Romans have got better at doing their drill.
Now make it work for things other than the Romans.
Yeah, here we go. Right, this is no problem. Right, I've thought about this for at least 10 minutes. So the Romans
on the way
are doing
back
this.
from Crisis.
Yeah, exactly. So the Romans are chucking their stuff and whipping about on their triplex axes and all whatever they've got, and and they're doing this on one command card. The barbarians are going to be a bit like the Saxons in Dux Britanniarum. They're going to maybe they're going to go get that big bloke over there and chuck him in. He's going to the berserk fella. He's going to go in and break the line, but it's going to cost them a couple of cards to do any of their tactical things. So the Romans are a lot more snappy and drilly, and the barbarians are a bit more lumbering and beasty, and they've got possibly equally as large a menu of things that they can do, like form the shrine head and things like that. But they are not as nimble as the Romans, who use less command cards to do exciting stuff. Well, that's as far as I've got. I mean, I've bought the figures. So
the important first step, isn't it?
Sorry?
Buying the figures, it's the important first step.
It is the important step, yeah. It is the important step, yeah. So that, more than that, I have not done, and it means we've got to have a big workshop session. And once the figures are painted, because I can't really do. You only know if it works when you've got the figures for it, don't you? You can't do it with cardboard cutouts. I know some people out there like using paper figures, but just for me, they ain't got no soul. So,
what's the phrase, Dave?
What's the phrase, Dave? That's good.
Only a counter.
It's only a counter.
It's only, that's good. That was like the generation game. What's the phrase, Dave? That could be your catchphrase, Neil. That could be good. Yeah. So anyway, the idea is get them painted up, get them on the table, and then discover that the idea is either ludicrous or it might have some mileage. So we'll see what happens. But at the moment, it's a nice cardboard box full of figures rather than an ongoing project. So we won't discuss that at all.
Okay. Right. Fantastic stuff. Well, Rich, as always, absolute pleasure to talk to you, mate. Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to us.
Yeah, my pleasure, as always. Always nice to chat.
And so we wish you all the very best, and we look forward to see what you got in store for us in the next 12 months, and more point-sized campaigns, please.
Oh yeah, well Normandy is kind of unavoidable, isn't it? Really, I mean, there's so much. There's you could spend your whole wargaming life playing Chain of Command in Normandy in 1944 and never duplicate the game. There is so much stuff going on, and the scenarios are so good. You know, those pint-sized campaigns almost write themselves because the story is excellent. And from my point of view, the great thing is that the material is, there's lots of material, you know, for you to use on both the German side and the Allied side. So yeah, very keen to get more of that happening.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, well, all the very best, Rich, and we'll talk to you very soon.
It's great. Cheers, lads. Nice to speak to you.
Well, that was short and sweet. Not.
Did you ever expect it was going to be otherwise?
No, but it was very good.
Informative.
I have to say, I am definitely drooling over the Sharp Practice campaign book. One of the things that I really liked about Muskets and Tomahawks, though I never got to play it, was the campaign system, and this sounds like it's going to knock that, which was pretty brilliant, into a cocked hat.
So much scope there, isn't there? Really is.
And for those fans of the Boer War, look out in the Christmas special.
Yeah, it finally sees it. It's nice to see that. Yeah. I mean, we actually saw an outing of it at
Operation Market Larden 4, wasn't it?
It was indeed. Yeah, we saw it. Yes, despite the fact that he managed to drop a box of figures.
And forget the trees.
Yes, indeed. So it did have an outing this year, and it is nice to finally see it in print, even if it's only
in virtual print.
Indeed. Yes, but yeah. Oh yeah. Yes, and ancient Sharp Practice.
That's intriguing. That is,
isn't it? Yes. Sharpus Practicus.
Yeah, please, sir, get your Latin word order right. Practicus Sharpus.
Practicus Sharpus. Go on, Rich. We'll give you that one for free. Practicus Sharpus.
With an A-star general, bigger stickers.
Oh dear! I'm suddenly having carry on moments.
Yes, indeed. Yes, Carry On Cleo was everywhere.
Absolutely. So,
in which case it will probably be called Infamy.
Infamy.
Oh, Rich, that's 2 for free.
Actually, knowing Rich, it would not surprise me if he actually spelt it IN space FOR space ME.
Indeed. You see, the problem is now we've given him.
It's just encouraging the man.
Yeah, but it's good.
Many things coming in the world of Lard, most of them all of them usually well worth one's attention.
Indeed, yeah, but it sounds like it's going to be a while before some of it sees the light of day, which I suppose is always the it's always the thing, isn't it? It's always a case of
well, as we discussed on the interview, part of it is inspiration. If you're not motivated to produce, what you produce generally tends to suck.
Yes,
let's be blunt about this.
Yes. But yeah, lots to look forward to coming soon, sometime in Easter.
I didn't say that. I want it minuted. I did not say that.
Yes, Easter
This
sometime
time.
in the future. Yes.
Well, there you have it then.
Indeed. So all that remains to be said is thank you to our guest, Mr. Richard Clarke, for joining us. I hope you found that chat as entertaining and informative as ever. Thank you once again to my co-hosts, Mr. Michael Whitaker.
You're very welcome.
And Mr. Dave Luff.
Yes. Cheers.
Thank you both. Much appreciated. And thank you to everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Up until next time, happy gaming, and we'll chat to you very soon.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media. And here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.